Hey everybody, this is our new bus that we just got, and I'm gonna do a quick walk around and talk about it a little bit. Now, I haven't had an opportunity to clean this bus. I haven't really done anything at all with the bus other than drive it home, and of course, driving it back to Florida, the first thing that I did was got it stuck. So this bus is currently up to almost its axles in the soft dirt out here, and I'm going to have to pull it out probably tomorrow or the next day. It rains a lot here, so right after it got stuck, it rained, so it's even more stuck. But anyway, that's a problem for another day. So let's have a look at it real quick. You see on the front of it, we did hit quite a nice patch of love bugs on the way through Georgia, and those things are nasty. This is going to take some real scrubbing to get everything nice and clean again, which is going to be hopefully next week after we get it moved into a better spot. Let's walk on over this way. Now this bus is a 2003 or 2002 Bluebird All-American, which is their more expensive, more feature-full transit-style bus, which is the flat front end like you see there. So our previous bus is a Bluebird TC2000, which was more of their budget offering, and they didn't offer as many features on those, but still a really nice bus. This bus is about 37 and a half feet long. It is a rear engine setup. And this one is equipped with the Cummins 24 valve 5.9 engine. They are also available with the 8.3, which was a pretty popular option. And this one is 12 windows. It has a couple of oversized windows on each side. The driver's side has this emergency door. It's not super big, but it sure is high up. So being able to use that might be a bit of an issue. I have to figure that out. See, down here we have undercarriage storage, which is something we didn't have on our TC2000. And I won't open these because they're in the dirt, but I can open them from the other side. These do go all the way through, all the way across the bus, which is really nice. There's a lot of space in there. This one, unlike our TC2000, this one was a school bus that was also used for charters. It's currently got the charter tag up. Instead of saying school bus on the top, it says charter, which is good since I'm not a school bus driver. Now, of course, you've got the normal Bluebird front end here with the nice squares and the windshield wipers that fold up. Those are really stuck on there from bugs. Yuck. Let's have a look inside. This bus does have an air door, so when the bus is off, you have a locking mechanism down here, and you can turn it to lock it or to unlock it. So it's unlocked. When you go to the left, that would actually lock it, and go to the right and it's unlocked. And push it in the middle. It's a bifold door. And the first thing you'll see is this entryway is going to take a little bit of attention. There's some obvious rust down here. One big difference between this and our other buses, this one does have rust. And one thing that I'll be talking about in future videos is how to deal with that rust. So here you see, this is a school bus with nothing really changed on it yet. Like I said, all I did was drive it home. And it's got all of the seats, which are just normal seats for school buses. It does have dual air conditioning, which is driven by the engine. Right now that air conditioning does not work, and that's another thing that I'll have to do repairs on. I think that's another one where the rust has compromised the system. So here at the back of the bus, this is the big difference between the front engine and rear engine as far as layout goes, is you have, what is that, 2.5 feet or so of a ledge here. Underneath that is where the engine is. So you access it from outside, but it takes up some space on the inside. So over here you have, I believe that's the air intake. So the air comes in through that channel and goes into the air filter in the engine. And so that dictates a little bit about how you would do your build. Now this back window, it's an emergency window and it does fold out really nicely. Let me try and do that real quick. Like so. And one thing that I'm going to do is take the switch off of that so that's no longer in the interlock system, so you'll be able to start and drive the bus with this window open. I don't know how often we would do that, but for right now that would be some really nice extra ventilation. They do have access here to the sign for the back. You see it says school bus on this side, it says charter on the other side that's facing out. Another difference between this bus and our TC2000 that was actually kind of surprising is the windows on the TC2000 seem a lot nicer than these. These kind of fit loosely in their frames. You can see that one's crooked and doesn't close properly all the way. With some wiggling you can get it all the way in, but then another wiggle will get it loose again. So that's probably going to be another video of how to make these windows less bad. We have 2 hatches in here. These are the kind that fold up on the front, also on the back. And so you can have it as a scoop for fresh air to come in, or you can have it where just the back is open to let hot air back out. And I don't know if I can close this with one hand. Alright. Our TC2000 only had a single hatch about halfway up. Here's that emergency door. Open that up. A little sticky. I don't think it's been opened more than a few times in its life. And it's pretty narrow, so some folks would use a side door for a ramp. I know some people use them for loading motorcycles into their bus or access to garage space that they don't have with rear engine. But I'm not sure what we're going to use this one for yet, because it wouldn't really be suitable for any of those. Now we do have a radio in here. It's not very good, but there are speakers all the way down on both sides. The radio was enough to get me home without being too bored on the highway. Let's have a quick look up front at the driver's area. There's the release for the air door. When you want the air controls to manage the door, you just flip this over to that side, and if you put it on the emergency release, then you can just open and close it by hand. And Bluebird seem to all have these compartments that give you access. There's a body fluid cleanup kit in there. I hope I don't need that. And there's another compartment behind here that gives you access to flip that sign around and do some other things, and also just some general storage. Alright, so the driver's area, we've got the big mirror. It's actually pretty good visibility when there's just windows and no furniture or anything in the way. This radio, like I said, is a piece of junk. We've got 2 fans for the driver, one on the windshield and the other one on the side here. And then we've got our dash cluster. We've got amperage from the alternator. We've got air pressure on the rear tank, air pressure on the front tank, fuel gauge, speedometer, tachometer, oil pressure gauge, water temperature gauge, voltmeter. This is a clock, and this clock, the LCDs don't really work, so that's going to be replaced with something else. One nice feature about this bus, it does have cruise control, and the cruise control does work, so I was very happy about that. And back on this side, we've got our headlight switch. This is the dimmer switch for the instrument cluster. We've got a high idle button if you need the engine to rev higher to build air pressure or generate heat or whatever more quickly. You can turn that on. And this button is a low idle speed adjuster, so you can actually use it to turn your idle a little bit lower. I think it goes down to 700 RPM or 675 RPM, or back up to some number above that. We've got independent switches for the windshield wipers, and they are pushed to hit the squirter. We've got overhead lights going down the cabin. This light is right above the driver's seat. These switches are for the 2 driver's fans that control them independently. This one is for defrost, although I'm not sure how that works since there's a defrost switch elsewhere. This will light up the destination sign, which is where it says school bus or charter bus right now. And this heater master actually turns on all of these things on or off, so if you need it to get real quiet, you can flip this back off, and everything that makes noise inside the bus other than the engine will turn off. It's pretty interesting. It's tilt wheel, which is nice. We've got the parking brake, key ignition, and over here we've got the climate control. There's a heater underneath the driver's seat that you control with this. You've got your main heat, which I assume is actually, so that's a temperature dial, so that is controlling how much of the heat you have on. You've got the fan for your defrost, and this is a fresh air mixer. And then you've got a couple extra ones here. The driver heater, the heater pump that actually pushes your hot coolant into the heating system up front. You've got a rear heater that's halfway back in the bus. Guess that's another rear heater switch. Front heater is the dashboard, and maybe there's separate controls for it. I haven't figured it all out yet. So over here we've got the door control to open and close the door. These are the buttons for the stop sign and the warning lights on top, which you're not allowed to use. This bus has the Allison MD3060 transmission, so it actually has push button controls, reverse neutral drive. It's got an economy mode that I guess shifts a little earlier, doesn't hold on to gears as long, and you've got an up and down button if you want better control over what gear you're in. If you're going through the mountains, going down a hill or something, you can use it to limit, instead of going all the way to the top gear, being able to go down one gear or more gears, or if you're in a situation where you don't want to go above first or second gear, you can control that with it too. That transmission does actually have 6 speeds, but in school bus applications, it almost always has 6 gear locked out electronically. So that's something I'm going to look into changing in the future. At best, that'll cost me about $350 to get a reprogramming done on the transmission control module. But that is something that I'm definitely interested in doing. Alright, so let's go back outside the bus. Alright, and this bus does have 11R 22.5 tires, which are good tall tires. They're super common. They're not cheap, but they're not the most expensive either. And the speedometer on this one has actually been replaced, and it appears to be that they use the speedometer calibrated for the 10R tires, so it actually reads a little bit lower than the speed that you're doing. And there is one of the air conditioner condensers. It has one on either side since it has a dual air system. We're going to open up the storage cabinet. Alright, and as you can see, there is a ton of space back here. I don't know if the switch works, but I'm going to try to pull it and find out. Nope, that switch doesn't do anything. So that'll be something to look into. But yeah, there's space. It goes pretty far back, pretty much to the back wheel. And this is how you get away with not having a back door for garage space. Alright, let's go have a look at the engine compartment. Well, before we get there, here's the battery compartment. And I haven't tried to pull these out yet. It looks like they've got a little something holding it in here. So we're not going to do that today. Alright, so now we'll have a look in the engine compartment. And there's 2 latches to hit. And then it lifts on up. Alright. So there we have the Cummins 5.9. It's the 24 valve. They call it the ISC. And as you can see, there's quite a bit of room in there to work. There's also a good amount of rust. Rust converting is very high on my list once I get this thing into a more permanent location. One thing I like about this is just how accessible all the engine components are. It would take no time to swap a belt on this, where that's a long, difficult job on my front engine TC2000. There's also a ton of extra space in here, and one thing I've seen people do is actually put their generator in here so that it's enclosed inside the bus where nobody can see it, nobody can get to it, and there's a huge space. So we're going to look into doing something along those lines, although I have another idea too that we'll see which one I end up going with. Now here is where the air filter is. That's a big boy. That's probably roughly the same filter that my other bus has. Cost me about $80 on Amazon for one of those. I'll be doing that again. The rear engine buses typically will have controls back here, so you can actually start the bus from back here, and you also get an oil pressure gauge. This has a vacuum based gauge for measuring the health of your air filter, so while it's running you can have a look at that and see how high it reads. And over here we have the cooling system. Whoops. And a big old fan, and I'm still working on determining how that fan operates, so I'm not going to talk about that one yet, but that's going to be a subject for another video. So you can see we've got a huge alternator. You've got idler pulley. This is actually the water pump main pulley, and that's air conditioner, and that's an air conditioner. So that's the two of those. And oil filter right here, pretty easy to get to. Dipstick for the engine, and the dipstick for the transmission, which you also use to fill the transmission. It's right there. And so yeah, that's about it. This thing really drives nice. It has a ton of miles on it, but the engine has been rebuilt twice on it. This does have a odometer on the back wheel, which is nice because these things, the odometer on the instrument cluster seems to be a weak spot. But you see this one's got 367,000 miles on this bus, which is the most I've seen on a bus, that's for sure. But having been gone through and having that MD3060 transmission, which is literally the toughest transmission they ever used in school buses, I feel pretty good about it. Even without having that 6th gear unlocked, this had no trouble, on flat ground at least, doing 70 miles an hour or so. And I actually set the cruise control for around 68. Once you start going above 60, your additional speed comes at a pretty substantial price in fuel economy. These things are not made to go super fast. They are shaped like a brick. So yeah, that is the walk around of our new bus. And anybody have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them down below and I'll do my best to answer them. All right, have a good day. See you next time.